So we are in the last exercise of portable fire extinguishers, right? So let's start now. Portable fire extinguishers.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Portable fire extinguishers are rated as for their use and firefighting capability, right? Based on the 5 classes of fire, the one we studied in the beginning, class A, B, C, D, and K. UL of 711 is the standard for rating and testing fire extinguishers. So for ratings and testing of fire extinguishers, it should be done as for the UL 711, right? For Class A and B fires, the rating consists of numerical numbers and letters like 1A, 2A, 2B, 2, 3B, 4B, and so on. For the electrical fire, there is no such ratings because electrical fire is the combination of Class A and Class B fire. So it is based on what is the quantity of Class A and what is the quantity of Class B in those certain applications. It is on that requirement. And then for Class D and Class K extinguishers, right, there is only letters designations, not any kind of numbering and all. This is regarding the rating of fire extinguishers, right? So there are several possible combination of multi-purpose extinguishers, right? The most common we can found ABC types, which is called multi-purpose extinguishers, but we have available also a type AB, type AC, and type BC also, along with A, B, C, and K, right? Class A fire extinguishers are rated for from 1A all the way to 40A. The meaning of one single A means 1 gallons, which is 4.7 liters, and 2A means two times of the 1/4 gallons. It's around 9 liters, right? So twice the capacity of the first one. And those extinguishers are using agents other than water can be given class A rating if those are effective on ordinary combustibles, right? So if 2B is other kind of the extinguishers effective on ordinary combustible, they can be given similar rating as 1A and so on. Then as for NFPA, which is standard for portable fire extinguishers, right? We have three different hazard classifications. We have light hazard, ordinary hazard, and extra hazard, right? So the light hazard where the amount of class A and class B combustible are minor, very minor. So those areas include classroom, church, assembly halls, residential halls, offices, and so on. Next one we have ordinary hazard, right? So ordinary hazard where class A and class B fuel are present, right? More than the light hazards, and those examples are stores, light manufacturing plant, parking garages, and so on. And next one, the extra hazard where class B combustible are in greater quantity, right? And those area, if you can say, painting, dipping, and the spray painting and coating area, mostly where flammable and combustible uh, atmosphere are always present. The maximum travel distance between any fire extinguisher shall not be more than 75 feet, right? That's true for class A fire. And here we have a table from IFC 906.31, which is for fire extinguisher for class A fire hazard, right? So the minimum rating is 2A for the light hazard, and then the first column is for the ratings of the hazard, right? This is for the general information, the ratings, floor area, maximum table distance. The second column is for the light hazard occupancies. The third one is for ordinary hazard occupancy, and the last one is for the extra hazard occupancy, right? So For the light hazard occupancies, we have 2A rated fire extinguishers, means around 9.5 liters of waters, mainly waters. It can protect maximum floor area of around 3,000 square feet, and maximum floor area for extinguisher should be 11,250 in this case, and the table distance we have 75 feet. Then for the ordinary hazards, if you can see, the maximum floor area protection reduced to 1,500, and for the extra hazard reduced to 1,000 square feet. But if you are going to the extra hazard, the rating of fire extinguisher should be minimum 4A. A 4A fire extinguisher should be only able to fight a fire in one area of 1,000 square feet. Then we have for flammable or combustible liquid, right, with the depth of the liquid less than 0.25 inch or equals. So this is our liquid depth in case of the spillage, right? For that, in the light hazard areas, we need 5B, 10B, 10B, 20B, 40B, based on the various applications. Now, those meaning of the B is the square feet. 5 means 5 square feet, 10B means 10 square feet, 20B means 20 square feet, 40B means 40 square feet, and so on. This is the rating for Class B fire extinguishers. Okay, this is about the fire extinguishers. I think we discussed enough in our fire protection 2 sessions. So we are just leaving the discussion here because there is no more information for the plan review with the portable fire extinguishers. We just have to make sure the maximum table distance between two fire extinguishers, right, and the capacity of the fire extinguisher, types and classifications, the maximum floor area requirement, and so on, the height, distance, and all. Then now we are moving on all the way to the last module. We have plan review for fire alarm system, right? So the basic function of the alarm system is to detect heat or smoke, right, and notify the occupant in case of the emergency so that they will evacuate the building, right? Apart from the notification and evacuation of the building, the fire alarm system also performs those following information, right? Closing stairwells doors, recalling elevators to the floor, unlocking exit doors, activating a special extinguishing system like FM200, and so on. So with the fire alarm system, we have three types of the signals. We have alarm, supervisory, and the trouble one. The alarm is for signal initiated by alarm devices indicating a fire. So when there is an alarm, it means there is a fire. Supervisory means it is just supervising some kind of the equipment, like the gate valve is supervised. For the speaker control valve, it is supervised that if someone is opening or closing, there will be some signal to the fire alarm panel. And the last one, we have the trouble, right? So it will give us the trouble signal, right? Like if there is a fault in the system circuit or component, such as a break in a circuit wire or ground fault. So all those information should be given by a trouble signal. You can see here we have one a schematic of fire alarm control unit. We can also see a fire alarm control panel, right? So this is the schematic for basic schematic for fire alarm control panel. We have just wait a moment. This is our primary power. We are getting some electrical supply, and this is our secondary power. Normally the battery units and all. We have a fire alarm control units, the LCD, right? We have annunciator panels. Then the three different types of the circuit they have given. From the top, it is the ID circuit, initiating circuits like the detection of the fire, like a smoke detector, heat detector, manual count point. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Nabi, what is the main difference between the panel and the annunciator panel?
The difference between these two are, just the panel. The panel will give you some. It is the main control unit, right, for the fire alarm system. But the annunciator panel will be something like that. It is connected from the main panel at some attendant location. Let's say there is a big plant, and in those plant we have a fire alarm control unit. And from the same control unit, they have connected to the annunciator panel. Mean it will announce the condition inside the main control unit, so that if the person is at the security gate, he have the annunciator panel with him. He can understand what is happening in the fire protection in the plant. So it's something like, we are just taking the connection from the fire alarm control panel all the way to some location where someone is continuous monitoring the condition. If there is a fault, it will show in the annunciator panel there is a fault at those locations. So the security person or anyone who is authorized for that one, he will go to the fire alarm panel and he will look for the following cases. This is like just annunciation.
So there is no control at all in the annunciator panel. They're only monitoring the alarms and the condition of the main panel.
Yeah, they are just monitoring the condition, and will go to the main panel and they will show. And the annunciator panel, there will be just the LCD screen and some kind of the signal, like green, yellow, and all kind of the lighting. So it will show what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it is just for the it is far away from the main control units.
Yeah, clear.
And then we have a auxiliary device, right? So it is like if there is a FM200 system protected some space, and we want to close the door, window, ventilation, and all. So those we call the auxiliary devices. Here we have a fan which need to be open, which needs to be the shut down or open. Based on that, we can use for the various purposes, like for the elevator recall system, door opening and closing, or whatever purpose, right? This is that one. The first one is the indicating circuit. The second one we have the notification circuit. Notification means the call point. No, sorry, stop, horn, bell, all kind of the public notification system. At the bottom we have the supervisory circuit, right? So it will just make the supervision for the fault. So as for NFPA, if you want to design fire alarm system, right? The standard used for design of fire alarm system and their circuit are NFPA 72, NFPA 72, and Section 760 of NFPA 17, which is National Electrical Code. 760 is talking about what should be the how you are going to give protection for the conduit wiring, what should be the size of the wiring, how you are going to protect it in case of the fire. So the wiring installation and the conduit installation for all the electrical parts should be as per National Electrical Code 760. NFPA 72 describes several list of alarm circuit, right? And we have three different type of the circuit. We have the IDC, which is the indicating service. We have the NSE, which is for the notification appliance circuits, and we have the SLC, which is called for the single line circuit, right? So the IDC is just connect fire alarm and supervisory devices, right? So IDC, it will connect fire alarm and supervisory devices, fire alarm control units. The second one we have the NSE. It is just connected to the notification system, like horn, bells, speakers, stove, voice communication system, and so on. The last one we have the SLC system, we call it signaling line circuit. It transmit data in two-way directional, right? Transmit data in two-way directional, that If there is any, they will let us know that what is the exact location of the fire. So SLC is mostly for addressable fire alarm system. Normally we have addressable, we have conventional one, and we have the addressable intelligent system. The conventional one is the old style one. In those in those connections, if there is a fire, we cannot we cannot say exactly fire where is the fire exact located. It will just
Mr.
give like
Rabi,
one. Yes.
now this the types, three types, can
Yeah.
come in one panel or different.
No, it can be only combination of two. Either you go with the IDC and NSC, or we have to go with SLC or NSC. The NSC
You
and
mean two?
SLC.
You
Yeah,
mean
any two.
two?
Yes, any two.
Two,
The
two
mean.
types.
Yeah. Before coming to that, I am just focusing on that. You know, there are three types of the fire alarm control panels. The most basic is the conventional one, the old style. After that, we have the addressable one, and the last one we have the addressable intelligence system. So let's say this is our conventional one, the old style, right? We don't have any information regarding that. They will just show you this is one loop, this is protected for fifth floor, this is protected for third floor, and this is protected for so on, right? And there is maybe 100, so many numbers of detector, right? A smoke detector, heat detector, and so on. So in this case, if there is a fire, right, in anywhere, at the panel we will only get on which floor we have fire. So suppose that there is a floor, big floor, and maybe 20 or 30 rooms are there on one floor. We don't know exactly what in which room there is a fire. So it will not give us the exact location. So the one have to go on those zones, like say if zone 5 is for the fifth, he'll go to the fifth floor and he will look in all the rooms where exactly there is a fire. So this is the old one, the most conventional one. It's still in the use for some of the hotels and some of the small areas, but most of the cases now everyone is going with the addressable one, the more advanced than conventional one or old style one. In the addressable, you know, in the addressable, in the control panel only, it will let you know addressable will use the SLC circuit. Sorry, SLC and NSC circuit. SLC and NSC circuit. Yeah.
Addressable. Now
Yes.
use any type. IDC and SLC, right?
No. SLC and NSC.
L, SLC and I and NAC. Number two
Yeah,
and number three.
notification appliance circuit.
This is for
Notification.
addressable.
Yeah, this
Addressable.
is for the addressable one.
Okay.
Might be we have. So what will be used? You know, suppose this is the addressable one. Just wait a moment. This is the addressable one, right? So we have possibility of all the theories is possible in this addressable. This is one. It is for going for the let's say going for the NSE, which is for the all kind of the notification allowances like horn, voice communication and all, the alarm bell and all. And it can be also connected with IDC. In this case, we can use only with, you know, let's say here we have detect. This is our SLC line, right? This is our signaling line circuit. Okay, and here we have our NSE. So in the SLC, normally we have connected all those indicating all those devices which detect the fire: a smoke detector, heat detectors, manual call point, pull station, a duct detector, and so on. Right. So once SLC detects a fire, it will give a signal to the fire alarm panel, and then fire alarm panel will activate the alarm system. So those alarm systems are connected in this NSC circuit. Let's say this is a horn, a stop, the all kind of the communication system, public voice communication system. So it will give us alarm, and the occupant will
Mr.
just leave the
Rabi,
building. Yes.
circuit. One
Yeah.
for smoke detector, another
Yeah.
one for strobe and pearl, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay.
Now in the same we have also IDC also I have given in the back direction. Remember I discussed that supervised one there is a gate valve for the sprinkler system or the fire pump. That gate valve is supervised by some wire and connected to the fire panel. So now if someone is opening or closing the gate valve, it will give one input. It will give input to the control panel. Someone is trying to open this gate valve or trying to close this gate valve. So indicating IDC here will only work as a supervisory signals. It's like a supervisory circuit. Means someone is opening a gate valve, it will give some signal. Someone is closing, it will give some signal. It is just for the supervisory purpose in the disabled system, right? So in the addressable, we can have possible of all those three kind of the connections. Now the last one we have the last one we call it addressable intelligence system. I hope you guys remember from Hamid class.
Yes, the SLS sometimes use to integrate the system with the smart system in the home.
Yeah.
Or is that right?
Which one?
The last one is used to
SLC.
integrate. Yes, to integrate the fire.
SLC is used for addressable alarm system, addressable control panels, and the IDC used for the conventional one, and also we can use IDC in the addressable or intelligence system just for the supervisory location. Like someone is closing a valve, it will give some input, or there is a if your pump is start, it will give a signal that the pump is getting started. If there is a low oil level, low water levels, for those kind of the purpose, we can use the IDC with the addressable intelligence system. So the addressable system. The last one we have addressable is intelligence system. It is the most advanced one, right? What they will say you, it will let you know at the control panel there is a fire in room number this much, this one, right? They will also let you what is the exact location of the room, what is the temperature there, and what is the smoke level in those rooms. So the physical parameters, the temperature and the smoke will let you know should I go to that room or no. So it is the intelligence system. It will give you the temperature in that room and smoke level field in those rooms. So this is the difference between the conventional one, the old style addressable system, and addressable intelligence system. The last one is the more clear than the addressable one, and the conventional one is the cheapest one, which might not be approved for most of the occupancies in current time. But no one will going to accept the conventional one, which is very old and it is not accurate. So better to go with the addressable or addressable intelligence system. These are the just basic difference between those three kind of the fire alarm control units. Here we have a different type of the circuit, like class A circuit and class B circuits. And the circuit part survivability, right? As for NFPA 72, right, it establishes 4 level of circuit pathway. Means it is giving the reliability of those equipment, right? They want to know that in case of the fire, for how much durations those circuit is not getting interrupted, maybe by smoke, by heat, or maybe someone break that one. So this is just level of the protection for the wiring. The 4 level of pathway survivability. The first one is level 0. In that there is no special provision for pathway survivability. Level 1 is for the circuit pathway in fully sprinkled building, right?
Mr. Rafi,
Yeah.
I am sorry, but this circuit path survivability, for what exactly?
This is for in case of the fire, how your cable and wiring is going to survive the circuit and all cable and wiring.
How to wait proof fire in case
Yeah,
fire,
how to
right?
protect it from the fire. Yes, how to protect it from
What
fire in case of the
the
fire.
best one? The best
Is the
one,
level
3 or
3.
0?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
This one, you can see that one. Level 0, there is no provision for any kind of the survivability, so it will may damage, they are not going to worry. Level 1 means this circuit is in a sprinkler building, right? The building is fully sprinkled with fire protection system, fire sprinkler system, and there is a conductor in metal raceway. So just they put the conductor in the metal raceways, so it will be level 1 until the metal don't get heat and melt. Your circuit is protected, right? Level 2 is for 2-hour protection. Right? So if there is a fire for 2 hours, your circuit is not going to damage. It will give the exact information. And level 3 is the fully sprinkled building with 2-hour fire protection. Now, from where this requirement came? This requirement came from the life safety code of the building codes. They will give, let's say, for example, there is a healthcare occupancies, the hospital and all. They might need a level 3 protection or level 2 protection, right? Or maybe some other kind of the occupancies, let's say the warehouses and all. They might need just level 1, not level 0, just level 1. Level 1 just put into the conductor in the metal race and protect that one. So those requirements we have to get, it will come from the maybe International Building Code, IFC or Saudi Building Code and so on. NFPA 72 will not let you that what kind of the protection you display and all. Then we have different types of the detector, right? We have heat detectors, we have smoke detectors. Heat might be the fixed temperature, rate of rise, rate compensation, or linear one. Smoke detector, we have ionization type, light scattering, photoelectric, right? Air sampling detectors, carbon monoxide and gas sensing devices, radiant energy, flame used with the fire protection system. I think you have to recall those from the discussion on the fire alarm system. The fixed temperature, it will just activate at some certain fixed time, right? The rate of rise will say that within 1 minute, what is the change of the temperature in the room. So something like around 6 degrees Celsius changes in 1 minute, it will activate. The linear one, they used to protect, suppose metal raceway inside some areas. They just used to wrap some of the linear heat detector. It's just like a wire. They just put it they just wrapped around those raceways that if there is a fire in any area, the wire will get melt, and once the wire get melt, there is a positive connection and there is a negative connection. It will short circuit. So due to that, you will get some information that where exact location where there is some fire, and you have to do that one. Now for the ionization type, right? We have ionization type and we have the photoelectric, right? So normally the ionization is ionized based on some of the materials inside the detectors, and the photoelectrics based on in the photoelectrics there is a chambers, right? There is one sender and there is one receiver. So in between always they are getting interacted with that if there is no obstruction. So if there is a fire, the smoke will come in this area and they will not getting signal from the receiver. So they will just activate the alarm. The light of obstruction is like a projected beam. If you have a big warehouse, right? If there is no kind of no problem with the any kind of obstruction, just put 2 beam detector, one at this location, one at this location, right? It will be a sender and it will be a receiver. So it will just get the light signal, right? In the plane. Here is the plane, right? It will just get the light signals. And if there is a fire, the smoke will be filling around these areas, and due to that, the signal get lost and it will activate. The air sampling detectors we need for highly hazardous area, right? I think you guys came to our labs, right? After the fire alarm lab.
Yes, with Jamal.
Yeah,
With Jamal.
with the with the Jamal. So
Jamal.
you have
Jamal
got all those.
Mohsen.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So for the carbon monoxide detection system, it is just for detecting the percentage of the carbon monoxide we know that carbon monoxide is a deadly gas, so we not need to be enter in those area where there is a carbon monoxide more than the concentration, and no one can survive in that. Now moving on to the location of heat detectors, right? So the location of the detectors based on the code requirement, right? A healthcare occupancies may need a smoke detector in patient room, corridors, common area, and other specific locations. In a residential occupancies, a code may require a smoke detector only in sleeping room and other with a suite of rooms, right? But most of the case we can see inside the room in normal case. Heat detector we don't need in building which is protected by automatic sprinkler system. So if a building is protected by a sprinkler system, we don't need a heat detector, because what is the concern that the fusible bulb will also work as a heat detector, right? So the bulb will fuse, water will start flow, fire will be extinguished, and the flow switch will give a signal to the fire alarm panel there is something inside those areas. This is why the IFC code or other building codes may not require a smoke or heat detector in any kind of the fire alarm system. The smoke detector and heat detector in unoccupied warehouses. So if there is a warehouses, they might not need heat detector or a smoke detector if it is protected by the automatic sprinkler system, because the moment it will fuse, the fire will be extinguished or will be under control by the sprinkler system. At the same time, the flow switch will give a signal to the panel and someone will come to control those areas. Now, moving on to the spacing of the heat detector side. So those heaters spacing depend on the type of the detector being used. What is the type of detectors, right? And what is the manufacturer listing requirement, right? So the manufacturer will give you what is the maximum distance between two detector, how much area it will cover. Most of the case in normal way, the maximum distance between those detector might be 40 meters, 40 feet, right? Or 12 meter. But this is the manufacturer listing is for placement on a smooth ceiling. If your ceiling is smooth, then only it is the 12-meter distance. But if there is a several kind of the factors, right? Several factors that influence this height. Oh, sorry, this.
Mr. Rafi,
Yeah.
12 meter between two smoke detector.
Yeah, most of the cases they need 12 meter between the maximum limit, right? The
Yeah.
12 meter between two smoke detectors, but it is the listing based for it is based for the smooth ceiling, right? There is no obstruction and all. If we have obstruction and all, we have to change that.
And I back to manufacturing requirement, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the influence of the heat detector, several factors influences the operation of heat detector, right? Like ceiling height, ceiling configurations, shape of the compartment. Based on that, those 12-meter listing is not possible in actual field requirement. So it will reduce further below that one. Let's see here we have the height. The higher the height of the smoke detector from the floor, the height of the installation, right? The higher the height of the building, uh, the spacing of the smoke detector will be reduced. Let's say the 12-meter we said is the normally listed for 3-meter height. A building is 3-meter height, so we can install for 12-meter if there is no obstruction and any kind of the other configuration. But as the height goes, if you are, it is let's say it is recommended for 3 meters and you are installing for 10 meters. So for that we have to use some of the factors, right? Let's say we have, this is our ceiling height, right? This is our ceiling height in feet and meters, right? And this is your ceiling height is going higher than 3.5 meters, sorry, 3 meters multiplied by 1 because it is listed for 3 meters. But if you can see 3.66 meters, you have to multiply by the efficiency of the listing reduced to 91%, right? The spacing is 91% of the 12 meters. And all the way if you are going to, let's say if you are going to 6 meters, it's only 64% of the listing, right? So 64% of the listing, and let's come to the 50%, right? If the height is 7 meters from the floor, now the listing is only 6 meter, maximum 6 meter between two detectors. Further, if you are going up to 9 meter, all the way to the 9 meter in the height, right? Now it is only 24% of 12 meters, which is almost around 6 by 3 is something around 2.8 or 2.9 meters, not more than that. So those listing by the manufacturer based on the smooth ceiling at 3 meter height. At the field condition, you have to make sure regarding regarding the height of the building and all, using this table from NFPA 72 and apply the rules. And this is the ceiling configuration, right, for ceiling joist, right? So if there is a distance between two detectors, the minimum distance from the wall should be half of the spacings, right? And this should be minimum 1/4 from this side, and this is a half of the spacing. This is how the spacing two detectors takes place. So the normal recommended spacing for the, now we are moving on to the smoke detector. The normal recommended spacing for smooth ceiling is 9 meter between detectors, right? And this is from the based on the lab testing of a smoke detector. In actual, it will not be exactly like that, right? And at the time, the smoke detector are affected by the following factors, which is the room ventilation, combustible characteristic of the fuel, ambient temperatures, air velocity, humidity, right? So if you are installing your detector nearby a diffusers from the HVAC unit, air conditioning unit, and the air is coming with a high velocity, maybe it will activate your smoke detector, right? It will not allow the smoke to come nearby the detector because of the high air velocity. It's just moving on to the other side. So NFPA says that, right, smoke detectors are sensitive to the velocity of air passing the detectors. In the normal case, maximum air velocity permitted by NFPA 72 is 91 meter per minute. So the air velocity around the detector cannot be more than 91 meter per minute. And now we are moving on to the notification appliances, right? The notification appliances we have, as for NFPA 72, we have public mode, public operating mode, and we have the private operating mode, and then we have the sleeping room requirement also. So let's move on to the first one, which is for the public operating mode, right? So what should be the audible requirement? What should be the level of the sound? This is what they are going to discuss, right? So there are three requirements, public operating mode, right? The first one should be 50 dB above the average ambient sound, right? So it should be 50 decibels above the average ambient sound level in those areas. Let's say a school or a silent college, right? There is no voice at all. There is no one speaking inside a college. The normal ambient sound level is around 45 dB. So 45 dB plus 15 dB, right? It is around 60 dB. This is the first one, how you have to calculate. The second one, they must also have an output 5 dB above the maximum sound level with a duration of 60 seconds. So what is the maximum sound level in those areas lasting for 60 seconds should be higher than that one. And the total sound of ambient sound level and notification of silences cannot exceed 110 dB, because 110 dB is the threshold limit. After that, if you are exposing to the sound quality, it may affect it will give more pressure on our ear, and it might be giving some of the problem inside our eardrum and all by time to time. And here we have for the private operating mode. The private, we have just 10 dB above the maximum ambient sound level, right? Or the second one, we have 5 dB above the maximum sound level with a duration of 60 seconds. So how loud is loud means a library whisper is 30 dB. Someone is sitting inside a library and just reading their book, right? Slowly, there is no sound, everyone is silent, 30 dB, decibels. If two-person is speaking at 1 meter distance, the level of sound is 60 to 65 dB. And someone is using a jackhammers 50 feet away from you, even you can hear that noise at 95 dB, right? Or a rock concert or the or some kind of the musical instrument at high quality high sound, they have around 115 dB, right? This is around 115 dB. And if you are exposed to 125 to 130 dBs, right? Normally, if you are from the process industry, they says that you are not allowed to go nearby the compressor room, turbine areas, or let's say the area where there is high ambient sound is always there from the equipment, mostly in the compressor areas or in the turbine areas where the speed of those process increasing the sound level. So if you are exposed to those, the last one, which is around 130 dB, for more of hours, slowly you are going to reduce your hearing capacity. So here is a notification appliance location for a hotel, right? A normal hotel rooms. They put one inside this room. Here is one inside another rooms. In the storage, they put one small horn, and all those areas how they are going to flash that one. It should be as for NFPA NFPA 72 requirement. You have to calculate all the loss of the sound from those area.
Oh, Mr. Rafi, we need calculation for this.
Yeah, exactly. You need calculation. I think calculation. For the calculation, you can go to the fire alarm manual. It is there in that. You can just
Yes.
use that one. What is the loss from the window, from the door, from the wall? What is the rating of that?
Yes,
All those calculations you can. Yeah,
there is a table for all of that. So
yeah,
you need to back to the table and just it's simple. It's not that complicated. But
yeah,
if you
yeah.
want the performance based, you can use the sound detector and do the experiment what the required decibel.
Yeah, that is for the performance-based applications.
It's as the experiment we did with Jamal in the lab.
Yeah, exactly. Same way. Jamal must have explained those requirements. Similarly, you have to do for the calculation. But in NFPA 72 handbook, they have given very easy calculation to make us understand how we are going to calculate those requirements. And then we have a floor plan for fire alarm system. You can see, right? The one with this kind of the symbol is a heat detector. The one with a small s inside that is a smoke detector, right? So in the office areas, reception areas, conference rooms, everywhere they have used the smoke detector. But if you are going to the garage areas, right? In the garage, they have used the heat detector because maybe a smoke detector is not applicable for those areas, and it might be activated by some kind of the smoke in those areas, not from the fire, or maybe some kind of the atmospheric condition coming from the outside, the fog and all. It might affect those.
Mr. Rafi,
Yeah.
I saw in college, Jubail College,
Okay.
I saw smoke detectors in the WC. This is follow requirements NFPA or what?
Where you saw in WC?
I saw a smoke detector in the toilet.
Yeah,
in
exactly. In
college.
those areas, we need in washroom and all. We cannot install the heat smoke.
This is
Smoke detector.
but this is place not high risk, I think, or what?
Yeah,
What
but
do you think?
they put the smoke detector or heat detector.
I think smoke. Maybe
Uh,
my
you
friend
know,
tell
if
me.
the area of the washroom is bigger, then we need then we need a detector in those areas. Normally they used to install the heat detector, but might be they have installed
Yeah, this
the,
is an NFPA requirement.
because we have to make sure that the steam, the vapors coming from the water may not affect the activation of those detectors, right? So normally required the heat detector based on the area of that one, but they might install mistakenly the contractor, or they not followed the rule. That is another case. You saw in the admin building or
Be
the old building?
maybe college or a project make it this because the student smoking in the toilet.
Yeah, maybe that is another reason. Where you see in the admin building or in the wings?
And the building for the program.
Ah, okay, maybe it will be there. I didn't notice
Wings
that
2,
one.
Wings 3, Wings 5, Wings 7. I
Okay,
saw
okay.
all.
Ah, okay, okay. Maybe they have installed. I didn't notice that one. Okay, so moving on to next one, we have a pipe schedule. No, so this is a wire schedule. They will give you the thickness. What is the thickness required for various equipment, right? So for the SLC circuit, they need 16 by 2 gauge, which is just the thickness of the wire. What's the number of wire and all. The FPL is the fireproofing materials, and so on. This all are based on NFPA 70 requirement. And here is they have given the maximum height of the horn stove from the floor level, and the pull station from the floor station, right? The pull station, what is the maximum height and all. And then we have a basic symbol for all kind of detectors. This is for as for NFPA 70, right? R means for the rate of rise, for fixed temperature, photoelectric type detectors, and these two shapes is the combination of heat and smoke detector. The same in one detector only, they have is heat sensor also, and they have a smoke sensor also. Then we have the horn stop, only speaker or horn. This is only just speaker or horn, but in the next one, if you can see, at the center they have put one circle, and like this, it is means it is a stop also, it is a horn also, and it is a stop also, which is giving the flashing light. The combination of that one, right? If there is only flashing light, this should be the symbol for that, right? The bell toggle, and the fire alarm control panel. This is just the basic symbols from NFPA 170. So now we are moving on to the last one, fire alarm system plans, right? So what should include in the plan, right? If you are submitting some plan for the approvals, if you are reviewing some plan, you have to look for the following informations. The floor plan show the location of each initiating and notification device, right? So the location should be known where they are located inside the floor, and the location of that one. The fire alarm control unit diagrams, the one we saw in the beginning on, the annunciation device if required, right? Primary power connection details, conductor types and size, the wire gauge, see figure 7.9b of handbook manuals, the manufacturer details, model numbers, and listing information for those device and equipments. What should be the ceiling height? Most important, because based on the ceiling height, they have to put the heat detectors, right? And what is the construction type? If your ceiling is not smooth, or there is slope or some kind of the obstruction materials, and the things is going to change. And then we have the battery calculation, right?
Why we need why we
Yeah.
need battery calculation? It's only it's wired. Why need battery?
No, normally battery calculation required for in the fire alarm control panel. We have the primary supply and we have the secondary supply. Secondary supply is the battery connection. In case the primary supply goes off, the battery supply will be activated, and they will power the fire alarm control panel. For the devices, while devices is not working, it will supply supply some load. And while your devices is working, right, the smoke detector activated, and your audible sounder, the horn stop started, and there is no power at those moments. So the battery should supply the power for those requirements for at least some minutes or some hours as for NFPA 72. This is the reason for that one. You got the point?
Yes, I remember it now.
Yeah, I remember now. So normally, the emergency power supply is required to have sufficient power to operate the fire alarm panel under non-alarm condition. When there is no electrical supply to the building for 24 hours to 60 hours, almost 2 to 3 days, the battery can supply power to those equipment while the alarm system is not activated. Now, if there is a fire, the fire alarm is activated and all the sounder and the stove is activated. In that time also, for 5 minutes continuous, those systems should be activated. So we know when all the sounder and the stove is flashing and giving sound at high voice and all, the power consumption requirement goes higher. So due to that, they want 5 minute alarm conditions. Based on that, you have to size the battery capacity. And then we have to gauge the voltage drop calculations, right? This is what is the last detector, what is the voltage drop calculation and all. This is some electrical things, and there is some of the tables to calculate the voltage drop and the battery calculation. We'll see in a while. The riser diagram, we have to provide the riser diagram, the name and qualification of the designer who designed the system, occupant notification system circuit, address list or zone list. Matrix is important for all the plans, right? Here we have a fire alarm matrix, right? We call it cause and effect matrix. The meaning of cause and effect matrix is they want to know that here we have, let's say here we have the location of the room. Let's say it is for some office areas, right? And they will show if this is our smoke detector. If this smoke detector activate, what will happen? So this is one signal, this is one signal, this is one signal, this is one signal, this is one, and this is one. All those one will activate, right? So what are those? Let me see if it is viewable into that. Suppose if the smoke detector activate, right? So it will activate the common alarm signal. So all the alarm system in those areas will be activated. It will activate the audible alarm system, right? And then it will be activate audible or visible alarm system. Normally, it is like, if some time of a detector activated, which one they are going to activate. So this is the cause, and what will be the effect for that cause. Let's say, for example, here we have a this smoke detector is going to close one door. So if there is a fire in a FM 200 rooms, right? So the detector will detect the signal that there is a fire and it is going to activate. Before that, it will give a signal to close the door. So this is the cause. This is the cause, and effect will be the closing the doors. Similar cause and effect matrix will be provided for all kind of the fire alarm drawings. It should be along with the fire plan. And then we have a riser diagram. Normally, the riser diagram will show floor by floor. This is floor one. What is the detectors? There should be the numbering and listing of that. What is the number of detectors, right? How many smoke detectors, heat detectors, and so on. This way we have to get the riser diagram drawing along with the layout plan. And here we have a battery calculations as for UL requirement, right? Let's say this is our fire alarm control unit. One quantity from the data sheet of the fire alarm control unit, we can see what is the amperes in non-alarm per hours per device, right? So I said that 24 hours to 60 hours we need a battery supply without alarm, right? So one device will take 0.3 amperes, right, and so on per hours. Amperage in alarm condition 0.5 for 5 minutes, non-alarm amperage, and so on. You have to calculate something like that, at the last. And similarly for annunciator panels requirement, the horn, the strobe, the ionization detectors, all those things we have to calculate. Based on that we have to calculate the battery calculation.
Mr. Rafi,
Yeah,
we need each device battery or just one for all?
we have to calculate the battery calculation based on all the devices installed with those fire
No,
alarm
no.
control panels.
I mean, how many battery I need?
We need just one or two battery. Well, normally there are two battery. One if you're going out, the
For
second
all
one will work.
devices. For all
Yeah,
devices.
for all the devices. It should be
Okay.
just nearby. It should be just below the fire alarm control units connected to the system. What we
Okay.
have to do, we have to calculate the total number of device, smoke, heat, and all, and then we have to calculate what should be the size of the battery, right? The capacity of the batteries, right? Here they have said the minimum battery capacity should be 9.53 ampere hours, right? So should not be less than that one. Here we have one of the battery calculation example, right? This is for some of the project. They have said that what is the different equipment and devices, their part numbers, quantities, right? Consumption in amperes, right? Consumption in milliamps, total combustion. This one plus this one is the total combustion, right? And the final one. So if you can come at the bottom, right? So they have finally calculated. At this location, they have come to a final conclusion. What should be the capacity of those batteries? The capacity says that the total secondary load requirement should be 27.86 ampere hours, right? So it should be fully for 27.86 ampere hours. Based on that, we have to size the battery for fire alarm control panel. Normally, this battery should come along with the fire alarm control panel, considering in mind what is the maximum number of devices allowed to install in these devices. And then we have the voltage drop calculation also, right? The voltage drop calculations, what should be the voltage drop calculation based on the length of the wire and so on. This is mostly the electrical parts, how you have to calculate the voltage calculation and all, right? This is the evil listing of voltage drop calculation for based on the candela, right? So if you have 15 candela, the voltage drop calculation is 123, and the higher the values, you can see between 16 to 33 volt DC, right? VDC, 16 to 33 VDC. We have this much current requirement for that one. So any devices with the listing of the candela should not be should not require more than this current for their device. So the manufacturer of the company have to follow the evil listing for their projects. Now move the installation details, right? We have a inside ceiling and on false ceiling, right? How the contractor should provide us the detail of installation details, right? So this is they have installed inside ceiling and on false ceiling. So it's like this is a false ceiling and this is the concrete one, the floor level, the roof level, right? And this is the false ceiling. So in this area they need detector inside the ceiling also, inside the false ceiling also, in those space, the vacuum space, because they might use some of the combustible materials and all. So these are some of the basic installation details you have to ask from the designer, how you are going to install. So us on the scale, right? These are detectors, the octagonal box, the flexible metallic conduit, and so on. This is for concrete slab, how they are going to mount those detectors on the concrete slab. And then we have a typical heat detector installation, right? They have just put mounted it on concrete slab with all kind of the devices and materials. And here we have a mounting details of manual coil point, right? What is the maximum height of the manual coil point from the floor level? They have given 1.2, but I think as for the latest NFPA 72 edition 2019, it is below 1.2 meters. Not 1.2 meters is I think more than that. So you just look for the height of the manual cool point from the floor level, right? So that someone can activate it easily. How they are mounted that ones, what is the wiring requirement, all those we have to look how they are going to install your system. And then there we have the location for the horn strobe, the alarm connection and all, how they are going to provide this information on the drawings. And then we come to the checklist, the last one, and the plan review checklist we have. So the floor plans should give us the use of all rooms, location of
وانا اوديكم
the location of initiating device, right, where they have put all kind of those initiating devices,
هاي بابا
location of notification devices on the plan, right.
نعم
جابر المايك شغال يا ابو جابر.
معليش I'm sorry
Okay, so we have as for IFC 707, right, this requirement from International Fire Code, Chapter 907, they have given the requirement and checklist for fire alarm system. So if you want all those information, if you follow IFC Chapter 907, you will got all the information. You will not miss a single things. So the first one, a floor plan, right, that indicates the use of all rooms, right, and then location of alarm initiating devices, how you are going to initiate the alarm, the smoke detector, heat detector, and all, and then the location of notification appliances, right, the call point, sorry, the stove, bell, rings, and all those kind of the communication system, the location of the control units, transpondation and notification power supplies, annunciators where they, if required, where they have used that one, power connection details, battery calculation, conductor type, what is the conductor material, whether it is fireproof or not, what is the size of the gauge, like AWG, which for the American wire gauge, what is those requirement, what is the voltage drop calculations they have submitted or not. So these requirements are must. You have to ask for all those plans. The first one we need, right, must you the first, second, third, fourth. The fifth one is the optional. If they are providing the annunciators, it's okay. Otherwise, it's like an optional one. Then the power connection you need, the battery calculation we need, the conductor type and size, voltage drop calculations, manufacturer data sheet, right? The model number, listing equipment and all we have to take from the designer or from the one who is submitting the plan. The detail of the ceiling height and construction, because this one give us the idea what is the maximum distance between two heat detectors, or how the ceiling configuration is there. The interface of fire safety control function, how they are going to interface with other kind of the other system, right, the fire safety control functions. Classification of the supervising station, may required or may not required, right, based on the project to project. And then the floor or level and identifications, point of compass, the one we discussed, the size of the direction to the north, south, and so on. Graphical scale, all wall and doors, partition, room and area description, system devices and component locations, location of fire alarm, primary power disconnecting. So now this is as for NFPA 72, right? As for NFPA 72, 7.4.5. The previous was as for IFC, International Fire Code, right? So either you use the NFPA 72, because we are going to install as for 72, so we will just stick with that one, right? The location of the monitor control interface devices, system riser locations, type and number of component devices, type and quantity of conductors, right, and identification of the ceiling height over 3 meters. If the ceiling height is more than 3 meters, what are the identification of those locations? Details of ceiling geometries, if it is slope or it is fully finished, or any kind of the obstruction is there, like solid joist, beams, columns, right, where we have used automatic fire detection system. So the height requirement and the obstruction or configuration of the ceiling affect the performance of the system. We have to ask this information from them. Right now, this is the common requirement between 72 and IFC. Right, the floor plan shall include the following information. Right, the riser diagram. How you are going to make the riser diagram? The one we discussed in the beginning. General arrangement of the building cross sectional, the cross sectional view of the building, sectional view, and the floor plan. Number of risers, right? Type and number of circuit in each riser, location of the circuit, a number of conductor of for each circuit, right? Wiring details as per 7.4.8 of NFPA 72. Input output matrix, the one we discussed, cause and effect matrix, that one. The battery system calculations, which is for the battery calculations, and notification appliances calculation, right? Power requirement for the secondary powers is the one we discussed a while ago. Secondary power supply capacity for 24 hours and will alarm for 5 minutes. So 24 hours without alarm, and if it is alarm for 5 minute continuous alarm, right? The coverage of smoke and heat devices, right? In accordance with total coverage as per the recommendation listing. Now they are limiting the installation of a smoke detector, right? Unless listed for such use, a smoke detector shall not be installed in an environment where the temperature is below or above 100 degree Fahrenheit. So below 32 degree Fahrenheit or above 100 degree Fahrenheit, right? Where relative humidity is above 93% and the air velocity exceeds 300 feet per minute. 17.7.1.8 of NFPA. So we cannot install a smoke detector in those locations, right? Because it will cause nuances, it will cause false alarm in most of the case. So if the velocity is more than 300 feet per minute, we are not going to use that one. Or if the temperature is below 32 degree Fahrenheit or above 100 degree Fahrenheit, better to not go with the smoke detector if it is limited by NFPA 72. The spacing of the smoke detector shall be as per 17.7.3 of 72, right? Point number 7 talks about the smoke detector location and spacing shall be based on a smoke flow due to plume and sailing depth. If there is a fire, how a smoke flow is going and all, we have to take that into consideration, right? Where to normally slope areas, right? If there is a fire at this location, it will go normally at the top. So those kind of arrangement we have to make sure. Keep in mind the ceiling shape and surface, ceiling height, configuration of the content, combustible characteristics of fuel load, compartment ventilations, and ambient pressure, attitude, humidity, and all those physical parameters. A smoke detector we can use in a smooth ceiling, which is 30 feet spacing, right? Or you can use the information from the manufacturing data sheet. And then they're talking about point number 11 is so important here. Smoke detector for elevators. A lobby detector is located within 21 feet of center line of each elevator lobby, right? Within the elevator bank controlled by the elevator. So for the lobby, for the elevators lobby, right? A smoke detector for elevators, a lobby detector is located within 21 feet of center line of each elevator door within the elevator bank controlled by the detectors, because they want to make sure that those electrical lobby will be closed by the smoke detector in case of the fire. The water flow alarm devices, the one we say with the sprinkler system, right? It should shown on the plan is shown on the plan as per the initiating circuit devices, right? As for 904.7. So if there is a water flow devices on the sprinkler system. Now keep in mind the sprinkler system is there is at this point I want to make you one thing bring into the service. Now the sprinkler system for the sum of the project, the fire protection contractor install the only sprinkler system by one fire protection contractor, and the fire alarm system is installed by some other contractor or by the main client only. So now there is a miscommunication between these two. A sprinkler system, a person came, they installed their sprinkler system, right, all piping and all, and there is a fire alarm system. We need the coordination between two teams because we have to connect the water flow alarm switches all the way to the fire alarm control panel to supervise those. So we need coordination from these two parties, and that sometimes it is like they just forget that one, and at the last day commissioning they used to point out these points.
Yes, Mr. Rabi. And nowadays, the big projects tend to give the office or the company or the contractor the sprinkler system and the fire alarm together,
Yeah,
not separate,
exactly.
to
Yeah,
avoid
exactly.
the problem.
Yes, and sometime sometime what happened, the company, the main contractor who is installing the bill, who is making the building and putting all electrical plant, they are only installing the fire alarm system, and they are giving fire protection system to some contractor. So at
Yes,
that time, the coordination required between these two to work effectively for the interfacing of the system and all.
exactly.
And we need a smoke detector in air ducts, right? In the ducts required a smoke detector so that the duct will close in case of the fire. And this should be based on the life safety code requirement where we need a duct and all. We have to go with this requirement will come from the life safety code, right? And then the manual fire alarm boxes, their cross sectional details, the maximum height from the floor level, right? All those information you have to follow. The maximum height they have given around 42 inch. We have to make sure with the NFPA current standard if it is less than 42 inch. And also, or any kind of the manual alarm box shall be located on each floor within 5 feet of exit door. So this is our door. We have to install within 5 feet, not even 5.5 feet. Maybe it will not acceptable. So it should be installed near to the exit door within 5 feet. So make sure that while reviewing the plan. And if we and they are selling again if this is a exit, right, and the width of the exit is 40 feet, right, the dimension is 40 feet, right. So in that case at two location we need if that is a big exit, right, more than 40 feet, we need one manual call point at this location and one manual call point at this location, and that should be within 5 feet from the door both sides, right, if the width of the is higher than 40 feet. This is the second criteria. 5 feet within the door, the first criteria. 40 feet if the width is if the width is more than 40 feet, we need at both locations, and within 20 feet of travel distance, like the maximum distance between two call point cannot be more than 200 feet of travel. So no one can run for more than 200 feet for going to a call point, right? And then they are talking about the height of the smoke detector, the one we discussed in the beginning. And there are the requirement for the notification appliances device, right? For the public mode and the private mode we discussed should be as per NFPA 72 of IFC 907, right? The sound level and all, I think we discussed that in while we discussing about the private and public fire alarm system, right? Let's go on. And there are some other requirement. And if there is visual alarm notification appliances, the visual alarm like the flashing light and all, that should be between 80 inch and 96 inch above the floor level, and the ceiling mounting in accordance with 18.5.6 of NFPA 72. The Candela rating should be as per 18.5.4.3, right? So all those requirement of all those requirement of NFPA 72 chapter 18 we have to follow for the notification appliances. And here comes the end of those fire alarm system and